Hey, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society Podcast, reminding you that this podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out all the other great podcasts on the network at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, a man for whom getting stuck in traffic was the only thing worse than sticking around for day one of nationals, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear, where we counter the media's negative image of gun culture by introducing you to the amazing men and women who are involved in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. We're focusing on people, not politics. The everyday people from all walks of life, men and women who volunteer their time and effort, who spend their hard-earned dollars on travel, match fees, and gear to make this sport great. They're your doctors. They clean your teeth. They're fixing your houses, taking care of your pets. They fix your computers and pilot your planes, and they protect our streets and our nation. They are gun culture at its finest, and it's misunderstood or completely unknown to the mainstream media. Today, I'm going to introduce you to another one of these awesome people. But first, I want to thank today's sponsor. I'm really excited and honored to be able to say that today's show is brought to you by the Blue Bullets. Why am I so excited? Well, for one, the Blue Bullets make cost-effective, quality bullets specifically designed for competitive shooters. Two, they're big supporters of the shooting sports because they're competitive shooters themselves. And three, because I'm a customer and I believe in their products. Using their own polymer-based liquid coating that they mix in-house, Blue Bullets are designed to prevent barrel leading, to reduce smoke, and yet they're priced comparably to other uncoated lead bullets. And unlike uncoated lead bullets, the Blue Bullets are Glock safe. How did they do that? They did that by spending 6 years developing a coating and a process that ensures consistency and quality. I can tell you from my own experience that while I usually don't perform very well at matches, the Blue Bullets never let me down. Visit thebluebullets.com today. Tell them you heard about it on Unload and Show Clear by using this promo code BBUSC at checkout, and you will save 5% off of your order. The Blue Bullets, family owned and operated by competitors who know what you want in competition bullets. Check them out at thebluebullets.com. Our special guest today is Brad Huebner from Newburgh, Indiana. Brad, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Lloyd. It's great to be here. Appreciate it.
So tell us a little about yourself. Tell us what you do for a living there in Newburgh.
Sure. Well, I do have to correct you real quick. The name is actually Bob Huebner. At least that's what I get called by my shooting buddies here in Evansville.
I should have asked before we started.
No, but I own a handyman remodeling company here, and I'm actually located in Newburgh, which is a suburb of Evansville. But I've been doing that now for about 9 years.
Very good. Originally from Evansville or from Indiana?
Yeah, originally from Evansville. Yep.
Okay. So where did where did the interest in guns come from? Is that something you encountered as a kid or something later in life?
Well, the actual shooting guns was more later in life, but growing up as a kid, I had the traditional BB gun, and I had a paintball gun when I was 13.
Uh-oh.
I remember that pretty well because on my 13th birthday, we went and that's what I wanted, was a paintball gun. And my parents went and bought that and came back home, and a friend from down the street came down, and we decided to go to my neighbor's house and start shooting things. And that didn't work out too well. So I actually got grounded for an entire year on my birthday from my paintball gun. So I didn't get my paintball gun back until I was 14.
One day of use and then had to put it away.
Yeah, about an hour's worth of use. Yeah. So I don't recommend that at all.
No.
But, no, I just always doing the kid, playing guns. One other memory I have growing up, my brother had an older brother. He's 4 years older. We like to do rubber band gun fights, and so I don't know if you've seen those, there's like pistols that you
Mm-hmm.
can tan rubber bands on. My grandfather was a amateur woodworker, and so we told him that we wanted a 5-barrel shotgun, and so he built us a wooden 5-barrel shotgun, side by side, and so we would have rubber band fights through the house, um, which usually ended up with one of us, getting like 2 feet away from the other and pulling a rubber band back about a foot and just, you know,
Right.
belaying on them with that, and then one of us would end up crying. So that didn't work out too well.
And Grandpa contributing to the arms race.
Correct. So that was I actually didn't, I shot a gun. I don't remember how old I was. I think I was about maybe 14, 15 years old. One of my uncles was over at my other uncle's house, and he was shooting a pistol just in the cornfield there. And we were over there, and I don't even remember what kind of pistol it was. I think it was a revolver, but I couldn't even remember. But that was the first time I ever shot an actual pistol. And that was the only time I ever shot a real gun until I went into the military.
What branch did you serve in?
So I did 4 years in the Marine Corps.
Very good. Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
The Marines, you're a rifleman. You don't get, unless you're depending on your, what your responsibilities are, you don't get a whole lot of handgun exposure. What happened after you got out of the Marines? Where did the interest in handguns and the interest in competitive shooting come from?
Well, actually, I did have one of those jobs in the Marines. I was in my primary job, MOS, was the infantry, but I did what they call a B-billet job, which so the first 2 years I was in, I did security forces, which we guarded strategic weapons for the Navy. And so we actually had to classify with all kinds of weapons, pistols, shotguns, machine guns, you name it. We had to, qualify or classify with each of those weapons. So I had quite a bit of pistol and shotgun as well as rifle experience. Of course, we had the Beretta M9 pistol, and that was my first experience really learning how to shoot. I also, while I was in, went to school to be a marksmanship instructor. So I got to learn basically the fundamental marksmanship, rules, 7 fundamentals of marksmanship, and that really helped out. So when I got out of the Marines, my parents got me a pistol that I had for concealed carry, and then several years later, I got married and had some financial troubles. I ended up actually taking that to a pawn shop, which was like the worst day ever, because I didn't even get like 1/3 the value out of that pistol. But
you got to use the pistol for more than one day, right?
I did get to keep that one for a few years. And I did conceal carry that, when I was 21, 22, getting out of the Marines for a while. That was a Beretta Cougar. Most people probably don't remember that gun.
Oh, yes, I do.
I think Stoger owns the rights to that gun now. I think Beretta sold it. But
Yep.
it was the first oscillating locking barrel in a pistol. But the gun itself, I love the grip on it, and it reminded me of the Beretta M9, so I was comfortable with it. But I sold that, and then I didn't have another gun for it was almost 15 years or so before I even had another gun. So
Oh, wow.
I had a whole time frame of not doing anything with guns, and then about 5 years ago, I started wanting to conceal carry again, and I went and got my license, and I bought a pistol, and then about a year later, I wanted to get into competitive shooting.
Okay. How were you introduced to competitive shooting?
TV show Top Shot.
Oh, of course.
Used to watch that. I watched every episode, every season, and I used to think I could do that. Like, for sure, I could be on that show. That was before I actually started doing competitive shooting and realizing actually how hard it is.
Right.
But no, that was my first introduction. I wish I would have known about competitive shooting a long, long time ago. But in that show, they would have a competitor, and they would say, he's the whatever it was, the IPSC champion. And I kept saying, what is that? Like, what are these guys shooting? I've never heard of anything like that. And so I just started kind of doing research and figured out later on that, there's even local here, there was some opportunities to do that. And IDPA was the local um, organization that they were doing, so, or the sport that they were doing. And then I ended up started shooting IDPA.
Which of the clubs there in the Evansville area did you find, and which one did you join?
So there's two local. There's Red Brush, and then there's Sportsman's, which you've had guests from both of them in the past.
Right.
I ended up joining Red Brush because it's here. It's actually here in Newburgh. It's not even 5 minutes from my house.
Nice.
That's super nice. I originally joined an Isaac Walton organization. They're all over the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And they had some decent pistol ranges and stuff. There wasn't anything over the top, but that's where I first started going. And I remember there was like a super unofficial. One of the guys was, "Hey, we're going to have a pistol match here at the Isaac Walton League, and just show up with your gun and stuff, and holster and ammo, and we're just going to have some targets. It's nothing formal at all." It was like IDPA's light version, one stage.
Okay.
And it was interesting because there was no safety concerns whatsoever. I mean, people were, when the guy was shooting, people were in the back showing each other their pistols, pulling them out. One of the guys got done shooting, and before he even cleared the weapon, he had like a 1911. He was trying to clear it and having trouble. There were guys downrange pacing targets.
Oh, gee.
And it was pretty amazing. So I realized that probably was not going to be a long-term endeavor. And then I found IDPA through another shooter. I actually looked up when I finally discovered that Red Brush was having matches. I went to their website and I started looking. I found they were posting the results on the website, and I found one of the other people that I know, Mark Haymond, and I saw his name, and I knew him from other places, and I approached him. I said, "Hey, do you do that shooting?" And he told me, "Yeah, I do." And started talking, and then he, gave me all the information, and then a few weeks later showed up at my first match.
Very cool. So what was contrast that day at IDPA with the kind of outlaw match that you had attended previously, and what do you remember of that day?
I remember the first IDPA match. I remember showing up thinking that I was going to beat pretty much everybody because of my military training.
Mm-hmm.
And I soon realized that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. But it actually turned out pretty good. I remember that first match. This was in September of 2015. And this is before Practice Score was really popular, and they would do one of the things that they would do is they would put the top 10 shooters,
Mm-hmm.
the top most accurate, the 10 most accurate shooters, and I ended up getting 10th place on that first match. Now, granted, my time was like twice as much as everyone else,
Right.
but I had the 10th place most accurate. I was down 34 points, and so that was pretty exciting. That made me feel, I guess, at least good about that accomplishment on the first time.
Right. So you talked about giving up shooting for 15 years, and one of the kind of cliches you hear is that shooting skill is a perishable skill. It's your ability to shoot well, if you don't use it regularly, is something that you have to really work to get back. What was it like? What did you do once you decided you were going to get that carry permit again, and start carrying again? What did it take to get back to where you were when you quit shooting 15 years earlier?
Well, I mean, I would go to the range and just practice, it's typical bullseye, one target, 15 yards, and just shoot, just bullseye shooting.
Mm-hmm.
I did that for, several months, probably almost a year before I even started doing the IDPA. But it didn't take too long to really get comfortable with it again. I do remember though when I went to the first match. So just a little bit of backstory. I'm actually left eye dominant, right-handed. I shoot left eye dominant. When
Okay.
I was in the Marines, this was back in from '95 to '99. This was before you even thought about shooting both eyes open. So you just closed your left eye and shot with your right eye. And
Right.
if you were right-handed, that was what you did. And so the first match I went to, that's what I did. I shot with my left eye closed and um, shot, looked out of my right eye. And then the people started talking about shooting both eyes open. So I tried that, but I was trying it with my right eye, and then soon realized that that's not going to work. And so I had to retrain myself to learn to shoot both eyes open with my left eye. I mean, that took probably a few months of dry firing and practice to get, at least sufficient to be able to do that. But a lot of that is just self-taught. I mean, I
Mm,
just would practice.
right.
I knew whenever I was in the Marines, and this was like I said back in '95 when I went through boot camp. One of the things that we do when we go to the rifle range in boot camp is we actually dry fired. They had a 55-gallon barrel that was painted white, and they had the three different targets that we shot in black painted on it at a real reduced scale. I don't know what the scale was, but it was real far. And we set about 25 yards off that barrel in a L shape, and we would just dry fire for hours. So I was already familiar with the process of dry firing.
Mm,
I mean, I knew that that was helpful. So before I even went to my first IDP match, I was dry firing. I was practicing draws. I was practicing reloads. I didn't know all of the stuff that I needed to know, but I was practicing that stuff. So when I showed up on day one, I didn't look like a complete idiot.
was the movement was that aspect of it something that took some serious getting used to?
Not really. I mean, we learned tactical stuff in the military, mount training.
Mm,
Of course, they were teaching the Weaver stance back then.
right.
But I mean, I had done practice like that. We had shoot houses. We would go in and they had paintballs, so we would practice tactical stuff with paintball through houses and stuff like that. So that really helped me make that transition to IDPA, and it made it pretty easy. So the movement and the shooting, all of that really came pretty easy for me early on.
Okay. So how long after that first 10th place most accurate local IDPA match before you decided you wanted to try your hand at a sanction match?
So I started, my first match was in September of 2015. My first match was in May of 2016, and that was the Missouri Backstopper Challenge.
Okay. What do you remember of that day?
That is my favorite match to date, because they really put in a lot of effort into the stages design.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that first match was like a carnival theme, and I just, I tried to shoot my best. I really enjoyed it. Of course, I was nervous, but I mean, I don't remember specifics about that day. No,
Kind of a blur.
I remember a guy beating me. So I ended up I had classified as a sharpshooter prior to that match. I think it was in March is when I shot the classifier and ended up getting sharpshooter. And then when I went there, I remember a guy beating me, and I just felt like he was sandbagging. I was a little mad about that. However, I ended up getting second place in sharpshooter. So in my very first match, I got bumped to expert.
Oh, wow. And now you are a master. Was this an SSP? I guess it was 2016. Yeah.
Yeah, SSP. Yep.
What was? Tell us about how you got the bump to master.
Yeah. So fast forward 1 year, 2017 Backstopper Challenge.
Oh wow.
I shot 2 matches in that next year. I shot the Backstopper and I shot Prairie Dale, and that was the only 2 sanction matches I shot. And then 2017, the first match was the Backstopper again, and so I was as an expert, and I ended up shooting that match okay. And there was another guy that ended up beating me first place, who just happened to actually win division championship in the bug class at the Worlds last week. Of course, we're talking about King Drummond.
Right.
He beat me. He got first place, and he actually won the division that day. So that match, a year later, I finished second place again as an expert and got bumped to master.
No wonder the Backstoppers has a special place in your heart.
Well, it gets better. It gets better. So last year, a year later, Backstoppers, I go in as a master, and that was my first division champion win.
Wow. That's fantastic.
So I definitely have a special place for the Backstopper Challenge.
Very cool. It'd be nice to see that match come back.
Absolutely.
So the first time that you went, did you go with other members of your local club, or how did you hear about Backstoppers as opposed to something that was maybe a little closer?
Well, Mark, but the guy I was telling you, Mark Heyman, he was the one that was telling me about it. We started kind of becoming shooting partners. There was a couple other guys local, Chris and Jason, that I started shooting with, and we kind of started practicing together. But Mark was the one that was telling me about these sanctioned matches and how you could, go and shoot. And so we went together. I think all four of us went to that match, but I don't remember if Jason went. But yeah, we carpooled up there and
Right.
had fun with it.
So what do you remember about that match where you got the bump? When you said to master, you got the bump to expert in your first outing, and you felt like the guy who beat you was kind of sandbagging. Tell us about the next year when you got the bump to master. What do you remember about that match? And was it just, how had your game changed between the 2016 match and the 2017 match?
Yeah. I was practicing a lot between years. When I went in 17, I was really hoping, 17, I was really hoping to, do well in that match. But I don't remember too much. I think that year I ended up getting one stage win. It was a really weird stage. They had cows all over, and you had to shoot clay pigeons in the head.
Oh.
And I think I ended up getting a stage win. That was like my first ever, stage win in a sanctioned match. But I don't remember much beyond that, to be honest with you.
And then any fun memory from the division championship?
That one we actually shot on Friday. I don't typically like to shoot matches on Fridays with the SOs, just because it's kind of a different environment, different energy.
Right.
But we ended up shooting that day. I don't remember why, but we shot it on Friday. And I had just, prior to that match, I had bought Lanny Basham's, mental management system on CD. Excuse me. And I had been listening to that, and I was, trying to get in the head game before that match. And I distinctly remember shooting well, like all day. I don't remember what my final down points was, but I do remember like halfway through the day, I was only down like 11 points. So I was shooting really well. And then I got to the last two stages, and my brain just tried to sabotage myself. And one of Chris, the guy I was telling you about earlier, he had mentioned something about, getting DQ'd, and that just started playing in my head. I was literally having a argument with myself in my brain. While the SO was giving the walkthrough on the stage, I'm like having a knockdown, drag out fight with myself in my brain over trying not, mentally trying not to sabotage myself. Now, what was crazy about that match is that we shot that on Friday, and all day Saturday, I just kept refreshing practice score, because I should say all day. I mean, in the afternoons, I knew they were still shooting, but one of your other guests, Mr. Matthew Penninger, was competing against me in that division, and he was shooting really well as well. And I knew I was checking practice score, kept refreshing, and it got down to the last stage. of the match. And I had done the math, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was like, if he shot a 21 or slower, I was going to win. If he shot it faster than 21, he was going to win, something like that. And I just kept refreshing and refreshing. And then all of a sudden I got a text from Matt, and he was like, congratulations, you won, or you got me, or something like that. And this was before the scores had refreshed, so I had no idea. But I just remember that was the most nerve-wracking afternoon ever, having to shoot on Friday and then wait and see if your score sticks. I said, I'm never doing that again.
And yet now you're a safety officer, and you've done that. In fact, you did that recently, like at the Holiday Havoc, right?
Yes. Yep. Actually, I got my safety officer certification like 5 months after I joined IDPA, which at the time you had to wait like 6 months before you can even do it. And I was like right on the cusp of having that time, and they went ahead and let me do it. So I got my safety officer certification within the first 6 months of joining.
What was the thinking there? What made you want to jump in with both feet and become an SO?
Well, they tricked me. It's just that simple. I mean, they told me that you'll learn way more about the sport if you become an SO.
Right.
They just straight up tricked me.
New guy, we got a fresh sucker here.
That's right. I wanted to learn the ins and outs, and at the time at the club Red Brush, before, there was about, I forget now, maybe 12 people that went through that class. Kevin Farrar was in that class with me, and a bunch of other people. They only had our club only had like 4 or 5 SOs.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were really stretched thin, in the SO in our club matches. So it was just a way to learn more about the sport, learn the rules, the right way to learn the rules. Cause of course there's a lot of the, what's this rule? And this person tells you, and that's really not 100% accurate in the rule, and all this. So I just wanted to learn it for myself.
Right. All right. Fun question that I ask fairly often and rarely. It's getting less and less that I'm getting interesting answers on this one. So if yours is not interesting, that's okay. Besides the normal stuff that everybody takes to the range, to a match, is there something that you always take with you in your range bag that you just absolutely have to have, and why?
I have what's called, I call it the Paster Pal.
Oh, I have seen this.
Yes. So that is actually a product that I designed and 3D print. And so that is so that makes it super easy to paste targets.
How did you come up with this idea? And because I'd forgotten that you made these, and I've seen them, and I've seen several people who saw them, and then next time I saw them in a match had bought one. Talk about where you got the idea for it.
Well, what's the traditional way we paste targets at a match? We tear off 15, 20 pieces, a row, and then we stick them in our pocket, or, we carry them or whatever. And I would always roll it up, because I just didn't like to have the idea of, you see guys out there shooting and there's a row of pasters hanging out their pocket, and then it falls on the ground when they're running or whatever. I would always roll mine up. Like, I would just roll it up, and then I'd go out there and I'd paste the targets. I would unroll it to paste the targets, and then I had to roll it back up. And it was like this nuance of rolling up pasters every time I go out there. And so I just figured, I said, there's got to be a better way of doing this. I knew the paster guns, I've seen those, but the problem with the paster guns is usually you got to use your own roll of pasters. And so I was trying to figure out a way that you could just tear off some, roll them up and put them in some kind of dispenser. And I just started messing around with it. I mean, I think the version I have right now is like the 15th revision of it. I would design it, then print it, and then I didn't like something about it, I'd change something, and then print another one, and just kept doing that. So I got to where I'm at now.
So basically, it's a holster for a roll of pasters, and when you wind the pasters through a slot, and when you pull the roll out, it peels the paster off for you and keeps them nice and neat on your belt, which is a really it's a cool idea.
Yeah, well, again, I did it because when you go to matches, you're using their pasters.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I do is I have like 6'5" arm reach. So I just take a paster roll and I literally stretch my arms out as far as they'll go. And then I just tear it off. So there may be, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 pasters on there. And then I just roll them up backwards and just drop it. It kind of looks like a revolver holster.
Yep.
For like a speed loader.
Yep.
That's what it kind of looks like. And you just drop the pasters down in there and then feed it back through itself. And when you pull it, it just kind of sticks out. I mean, it's very similar to like a paster gun.
Yep.
You pull the handle and this paster sticking out a ½ inch. You just take your finger and grab it, and you can do 4 or 5 at a time on your fingers and then go to town.
Very cool. Is there a way for those who are interested? Is there a way for people to get one?
Yeah, I do. Right now, I actually have an Etsy store. I don't even know what the link is, to be honest with you. If you go on Etsy and search for Paster Pal, you should be able to find it.
I'll look it up and I will include a link in the show notes.
So now I'm going to get an order like 200 of them, and I'll have to start printing in 24 hours to get them out there.
Well, Brad, the last question, of course, we kind of wrap up here. You've been, what is it about IDPA that's special for you?
There's several reasons. One, in shooting in general, for me, it's more of a personal journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a way for me to better myself. And so, like I said, just shooting in general is why, for me, it's just a way to mentally get better.
Mm-hmm.
But IDPA, I really like. I mean, and I do shoot some of the other sports, but IDPA is I've found that they have better people in general. It's just a network of like-minded people. I just created a good brotherhood of people that you can shoot with. So that's what I really like about it.
Like a big family.
It's kind of like a step in for being in the military. You've heard about the military. It's like a brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And this would probably be like a close second of what that's like.
That's a common theme I hear from veterans. So very cool. Well, Brad, thank you so much for coming on the show and doing this. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you again. I know I will on the range, and good luck at your next match.
Absolutely, Lloyd. I appreciate it. Thank you for this podcast that you do for the shooting sport. Really appreciate it.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank our guest for coming on the show and our sponsors for making all of this possible. Take a moment, if you would, to check out the website, check out our show notes at unloadpodcast.com. We've got lots of interviews with more amazing guests like the one you heard today. Join our Facebook group at unloadpodcast.com/Facebook for all the latest updates and to connect with other fans of the show. And if you'd like to support the show, we sure would appreciate it. Consider becoming a patron at unloadpodcast.com/extra. I've got some full-length interviews and special content available there exclusively for patrons as well. And if you know somebody or you yourself would make an interesting guest for a future episode of Unload and Show Clear, please contact me at lloyd@unloadpodcast.com or click on the contact page on the website and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Tune in again next time for another episode of Unload and Show Clear.